Are you curious on how a woman could build a bodybuilder's physique and also make $100,000 a month on OnlyFans? Well, this Instagram model called Vladislava is definitely the one to teach us today how to get all of that done. And I'm going to cover it in this video and use it as maybe a teaching resource for you to learn a little bit more. Let's get started. If you're new here, my name's Coach Kolton. I help people get really fit and jacked in both competitive sports and just in normal day-to-day life. I've coached hundreds of people, male and female, and have a great awareness as to what kind of happens in the background to enhance one's physique. And I really wanted to discuss this gal in particular because I think I have some evidence what works for people who are interested in achieving similar results as Vladislava, or maybe even better results. She's also obviously in a lot of algorithm trends right now and in general OnlyFans, so kind of a big deal. So understanding where she started is a really big point here, and I do want to say that I wish I could have personally reached out to her. I just simply didn't have the resources to. She has millions of followers on all platforms, and I'm certainly not going to be one that sticks out to her. So unfortunately, out of all the creepy guys in her DMs, I wasn't the one to stand out and get to ask her a couple of these questions, and I had to extrapolate from hundreds of hours, literally, of research trying to figure out more about her in-depth history and what she's done, used, and all of that cool stuff for you guys. And if you appreciate that kind of content, I wouldn't mind a like button. So since she's so busy with something, probably OnlyFans, I'm going to cover a lot of her history so we can understand where we are at for a moment and then talk about some of the things that she's done. And it's really cool, actually. She grew up in a Russian village living off pretty much scraps from her description of it. And a lot of this was gathered from different podcasts and pieces of content that she's put out, including her YouTube channel. She had a pretty normal family, a brother and a sister, but as you can generally think of a Soviet family, I'm for democracy, by the way. USA! USA! They are pretty rough around the edges and have some stereotypical views on the world and what their children should do, and it sounds like that kind of bled over into her childhood. She played basketball, though, and was in a lot of athletic sports in high school and in middle school.
Before that, I was doing athletics at school, basketball, athletics,
You were playing
table.
basketball?
Yeah, basketball. I was really good. I had my own team.
Really?
Yes.
Slam dunking on everyone?
Yeah. Guys hated me for that.
She had a ton of bodybuilding inspirations, though, that were at Olympic levels during these times, and she admits that she looked up to these people and, in fact, wanted to be a sports or fitness model based on what these female bodybuilders were looking like, which is kind of interesting. Because when she's talking about this fascination, she mentions that she was really only about 15 to 16 years old, and quite honestly, you don't often hear too many people being so fascinated with muscular development at a younger age such as that, especially females. But she did mention that she was kind of a tomboy and she liked athletics more than looking pretty, and she wasn't really in touch with her feminine side, and part of that was due to her familial system just generally keeping her as conservative as possible, and that really turned her towards athletics, again not being like the most emphasized pretty girl in school.
And the boys didn't like you?
Well, I was a tomboy at that time.
Really?
Yes.
I think you still are a little bit of a tomboy.
Maybe. I'm hiding it.
She came out of school, high school, or what we would call high school at least, and went to college, which is really cool. She went to college in Bulgaria and the Czech Republic, and she actually found a lot of challenges doing this through employment and just financially in general, and she generally had to leave because she needed better opportunities. And really, when she started the whole process of doing this, her family was supporting her, and that was basically through 2 months of monetary means. Even though they did that, it seemed like past 2 months they wouldn't support her, so she had to find money of her own and simply couldn't do so. So she actually ended up dropping out of college without finishing.
What did you, when you finished that degree, did you feel like you learned anything?
I didn't finish it.
Oh, you didn't finish it?
I had no money.
What, to pay for the degree or to actually just live in Prague?
Both.
And it was around this point that she actually garnered a great degree of interest within bodybuilding as a general sport. She went into a gym, a random coach approached her, helped her train, and actually started progressing in terms of her physique. And she very clearly mentions that she responded pretty well compared to the people around her, and notably was getting recognized in the gym even at 16 years old. When she did go to the gym, she had expressed a lot of interest in competing and was told actually that she was too young, which I think is really a good idea for a lot of people to hear who are under the age of 19, 18. But regardless, she actually just took that as I need to take more time and build more muscle, which is cool, but the family didn't love that idea. Shortly after this, not being able to afford school, dropping out, and trying to find work elsewhere, she did meet a coach who decided to help her, and at this point she was employed by just simply handing out flyers, advertisements on the street, which doesn't sound super fun, So I'd imagine she was really looking for an opportunity, and this coach said he could help her and do it at a low cost. But almost immediately he started pushing compounds on her, and she was none the wiser. She'd never even heard of things like anabolic androgenic steroids or the other compounds that bodybuilders use to look the way they look. And instead of getting her to agree to taking these things, he actually just started giving for them in forms of supplements, as in Anavar and D-ball, pill forms of these compounds, which are orally administered and not injectable like most people think anabolic androgenic steroids are. So she was taking this concoction and had no idea what it was. And then to top it all off, this girl was so clueless that her coach even gave her injectable testosterone, told her what dose to take it at, showed her how to inject it, and she just figured it was something else. She didn't even know it was testosterone. She mentioned that she had an idea in one of the podcasts she was on, but it wasn't really that much of a concern to her because she had a lot of faith in this guy. And what I'm assuming here the dynamic was, because this just happens in the fitness industry so often, was that she was probably dating this guy in some capacity, and the trust was there because of that relationship, and then he just sort of contorted that relationship into, I'm gonna fuck her up so she probably has no one else to go to but me. But thankfully it seems like she got herself out of that situation pretty quickly after losing about what she said was 50% of her hair. I mean, that is immense. So in this bodybuilding gym with this obscure coach giving her random compounds that she had no idea what were until after the fact, which was again D-ball, Winstrol, and testosterone. Again, no compounds that women should not be touching, to be honest. And testosterone's fine for testosterone replacement therapy, but exceeding testosterone replacement therapy doses gets into really great areas. A bit concerning, and definitely cause for a lot of secondary male characteristic development, which we'll talk about. And I would just encourage you to imagine being in her shoes, being in a random country, not having a lot of connections or resources, not having a stable job, and then suddenly this guy at the gym approaches you, wants to coach you for a very affordable price, and then starts giving you anabolic steroids without actually knowing that you're getting them, and then seeing the result of that, which she's getting water retention, acne. I mean, she had even mentioned losing 50% of hair. I know I said that, but that's like a lot of hair, and she said it was really depressing. It took her 4 years to get it back. That is critical. So Vladislava, after all of this, really struggled with her identity and trying to figure out where she fit in. She started feeling really masculine. Obviously, if you're taking boatloads of testosterone and other anabolics, you might feel that way. But what's interesting, and I think really notable for those of you watching, and if you're male or female, I think this really applies. She did mention that this wasn't when she made the most progress, and not even close to the most progress during this time. It was actually after this had happened and she had learned her mistakes that she started to implement safer protocols, which I still am a little bit contentious with, but safer protocols nonetheless, that she made more progress. And this completely is validated by what we see in bodybuilders all of the time. If you're recklessly going down the path of performance enhancing drugs and just expecting them to carry you through results, it's a really, really unfortunate road to head down, because it doesn't lead to much of anything outside of a copious amount of side effects that honestly are not worth the cost. And believe it or not, she was about 19 years old when all of this started. She started taking testosterone, started taking D-balls, started taking Winstrol, all of them at the same time. And I am telling you, if you guys are not aware of performance-enhancing drug use, that's a lot of compounds for a female to be carrying the burden of. It's just not good stuff. And especially at 19, when your brain is really plastic and androgenic signaling can actually modify brain structures, it's a really concerning factor that probably gave her a lot of mental issues that she had to work through. And she does actually mention that she had to go to therapy for quite some time to work through a lot of the stuff that had happened to her, both in terms of actually just getting jacked up from misusing compounds, but also it seems like her past life with her parents and just in general the parental situation wasn't super healthy, which I mean, whose isn't, right? Now, however, she does mention that she cycles, so she takes very short periods of anabolics and then comes off for very long periods. It seems like she didn't really get into the weeds of this anywhere that I could personally find, and if you guys found something, I'd love to see down below. But she talks about simply just using something for about 4 to 8 weeks coming off for much longer than that, and then when she needs to or feels like things are getting a little bit slower, getting back on. And she really does express not loving the ability to not get a pump on when off stuff, and I think that's also highly relatable outside of the relevance of this topic, but you get it. She doesn't like not being pumped and having that engorged feeling within the muscle like you're really doing something. Now, Vladislava kind of compares her sexuality and relational statuses as she is a bigger person, more of a masculine role at this point. She likes to mix masculinity and femininity, part of the reason that she's doing what she's doing for a career, but she does mention that she doesn't like a guy who's in control. She doesn't like someone paying for her. She doesn't like someone who makes more than her. Very specific kind of criteria for a male, I guess, but I kind of get it, right? Like if you're in a position and your brain's been a little bit modified by anabolic androgen steroid use, then you could probably have these pontifications, or maybe you're just a female who enjoys independence and wants to kind of thrive off her own success. I don't know, but definitely interesting, I thought, because there is a good amount of research that suggests androgenic signaling to the brain can actually alter the brain's structure and change kind of thought profiles. There's even research actually in birth control with this exact same thing, and you might assume that maybe, possibly due to her prior abuse, especially when her brain is so plastic and young, that this could have cultivated sort of the thought pattern that she had to be the dominant one in the relationship, which some guys might actually like that, but I think most guys would feel a little bit weird about that situation happening to them. I don't know, maybe you tell me down below. So now is about when, after therapy, sorting stuff out, getting her ducks in a row, if you want to call it that. I mean, after all the crazy things she's been through, whatever, right? But she's making progress in life, it seems, and more so in her physique. And that was when she actually started an OnlyFans and started joining webcam sites, which this is a topic that is actually kind of fascinating because she started making $100,000 a month pretty quickly after doing that. And this wasn't much after all the events that I had just described. And so obviously she found success. She didn't have to go back home to Russia and live out that life with her family in the way that they wanted, which is good for her. And obviously there's a big group of people who like muscular women in the capacity that is enough to promote them monetarily, OnlyFans, which is cool and all, but definitely a success story, maybe. I guess, I don't know. But the point of this review is sort of to understand a little bit about what she did to herself to look like who she is today and what's hitting your algorithm like 24/7. And I really want to take what she did and talk about what I do with athletes and clients alike to get maximized results if that is somebody's desire. I don't know about the whole 100K a month thing on OnlyFans. I'm not the guy to ask for that, but I can help build physiques, and this is what I've done. And trust me, female enhancements are wild. I mean, they're all over the place. It is a highly contentious topic, and I know, for a matter of fact, me talking about any of this stuff is going to make YouTube go berserk on my video and in my comment section. It seems like on almost every video they disable my comments, which really sucks because I think this kind of content needs to be put out there so more people have awareness of what the dark side of the fitness industry is and what's happening, because there's a lot of females and males, fairly enough, that are almost predatorily sought after to influence them taking some form of steroids and then leading to lifelong consequences that aren't fun to deal with and weren't really needed in the first place. And so using this platform to discuss what people have done and what I would do that is much safer, not that I'm a doctor, not that I've done any amount of clinical data excavation or anything of that nature, but it is important to talk about and unravel so you guys can formulate your own thoughts and be aware of what people have gone through. So let's get into what I probably would do in this situation, not on OnlyFans, but actually just to build a physique. Now, it should be known that women are extremely sensitive to androgens. They have a great proclivity to respond to them in a very negative way. This can look like secondary male characteristics developing, and you even see this in natural cases with women who have PCOS or hyperandrogenism. They start to develop male characteristics like facial hair, hair loss, abnormal body odor, clitoral growth. It's kind of actually an interesting topic to go down. Their larynx grows and develops edema, which deepens their voice. Their bone structure changes. They develop a lot of DHT mediated acne, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself. And Big Pharma has tried to solve this problem for decades, multiple decades now, because ultimately androgens are a great tool in our society. And while they're demonized and steroids are sought as this bad drug by many people, mostly Americans, because in other countries it's basically just legal and you can go pick it up from your local pharmacy, but America's got their own thing going on. I I'm still democracy, right? But that part is kind of weird to me. And they've made a lot of products. You got dozens of anabolic androgenic steroids, which weren't developed in some lab or garage somewhere. They were developed by big pharma, creating compounds to aid the androgen sensitive women and children so that they don't have poor outcomes in actual therapy and they can promote health as opposed to degrade it. And the anabolics we're talking about are mostly used for tissue recovery, cancer prevention, lots of really important things that affect society today. But they failed, and most of these products that were created, equipoise, nandrolone, trenbolone, masteron, primobolan, and I mean, you could go down the list, are pretty unsuccessful in females, and the one that's really only still used is Anavar, or what is called oxandrolone. But the reason that they failed is because they did cause secondary male characteristics in women, and that, my friends, is not a good thing. So here's the skinny of it that I think people don't often understand. There is a lot of compounds that females can use to enhance their performance just like men without actually submitting themselves to the secondary male characteristics, or what we call the virilization of their bodies. We want to accentuate systemic growth, but we don't want to turn you into a man. So how can we do that? Well, there's many pathways in the body that do affect skeletal muscle growth. You have JAK-STAT, you have mTOR, you have IGF-1, you have myostatin. There's numerous pathways that we can kind of pull triggers on to get growth to happen naturally and unnaturally. And personally, there's many that I use on a daily basis with some of the clients who desire to get there and want to do it safely and have consulted with their doctors. So we're looking at things like growth hormone, insulin, IGF-1, hundreds of different peptides on the market right now and continuously being developed almost every single month. Glucose mediators like metformin, adrenergic stimulators like clenbuterol and ephedrine. You can manipulate the thyroid axis. You can even inhibit myostatin, which if you've ever seen those like really juiced up cows that are like beyond big and jacked, that most people probably would be absolutely horrified by, but we could use for a lot of food. That is a myostatin inhibited cow that has developed an obscene amount of muscle that I don't think anyone wants. So with this ammo in stock, let's talk about the things that I would do personally to get the results in a female that wants to do it safely without virilizing herself. That doesn't even include anabolic androgenic steroids. So for a female aspiring to be jacked and make millions of dollars off OnlyFans, or maybe not that part, but some of that part, I don't know. It's really honestly, whatever you decide to do with your body is you. I'm just going to help you get to the thing that you want to do. Now, obviously, this is all predicated on the fact that you should have your nutrition dialed in. A diet should be 100% covered. And there's a lot that involves a 100% dialed in diet that many people don't track. Not just protein and calories. There's so much more than that. And females are one of the populations that tends to have a big struggle with monitoring their diet. And if you don't, I suggest booking a call with our team below. We have a little link down there and it will actually directly book you a call with either myself or one of my team members, but our YouTubers actually get a special discount, which I'm not sure you guys knew about, and the links are only in these videos. We do offer one-on-one coaching that is so highly specialized that we have to cap our client intake or onboarding to only 2 to 3 clients per month. It's pretty extreme. If you're interested in coaching and getting your diet dialed in and your training perfected with a lot more included, use the link below to set up a call directly with myself or one of my team members, and we will get you on board and getting results within 12 weeks or less, or your money back. But you also need to understand a lot of other things as a female looking to partake in androgens as well, or any other performance enhancing compound, which is your training and your lifestyle, and all those things sort of triangulate into one factor, which is your well-being and growth potential. Because if I add gasoline to a fire that isn't lit, it's not really going to do anything. But if the fire is lit and it's kindling quite nice, and then I spray gasoline on it, it's going to ignite into a massive fireball. And we want you to be a fireball that doesn't burn alive, but just metaphorically speaking has fire around them. There's like a power kind of thing that, you know, like jacked and stuff. That's what we're looking for. So straight up, real talk, this is what I have seen some people do that may have been under my advisement, but not really so. I like to see females injecting bilaterally IGF-1 in their muscles of greatest concern. This could be done 3 to 4 times a week in training days prior to training to get the most results. Something like 50 to 100 micrograms in each muscle would be the best way to go about this. You could also take growth hormone or do this in concurrency with the actual IGF-1 administration, but growth hormone before bed, as high as a tolerable dose can be taken, will be wildly effective to mitigate fat gain and loss while also promoting lean mass gain. Insulin pre-workout is another great protocol, using something like Humalog at 3 to 5 IUs for a female with a pre-workout meal that has a decent amount of carbohydrates. This is a really good way to agonize muscle retention during the workout and prevent as much muscle catabolism as possible. Microdosing clenbuterol can affect the mTOR pathway and does seem to have some really good effects when it relates to nutrient partitioning in the off season for a female who is eating quite a bit more trying to grow muscle. And then T4 or thyroxine, not thyroid or cytomel, but T4 can be a useful tool as well. That can trigger some metabolic pathways. You'd ideally want to take this in the morning at about 50 to 100 micrograms starting out, doing labs after several weeks to see and assess where that thyroid panel is, and then making adjustments there. But all of these options that I'm typically using will not virilize a female. In fact, she would experience zero virilization because there's not a hormonal input at all. It's all mostly protein and peptide based. So there is reality, a lot of levers that females can pull to get jacked without touching Anavar, without touching any anabolic androgenic steroid. But what is really important here is laying the groundwork to the programming prior to the advent of anabolic androgenic steroids into a female's lifestyle or training methods. And to be honest, what I've seen is females are way more gung-ho than men on this. So you have to kind of understand the psychology of females as well, because they might just very well be saying, hey, let's do this, without understanding the actual consequences of the let's do this attitude, and then hating what they did in the coming months, but trying to start an OnlyFans anyways and make $100,000 a month. And if you're not a female, I have several videos that I think could really help you continue to build muscles. And if you are a female, there's a lot that could come which would benefit you to watch.